Today on the show, we're very lucky to have Louise Miller with her first book. Louise is a pastry chef who works and lives out of Boston, Massachusetts. She received a scholarship to attend Grub Street's Novel Incubator Program, which is a year-long workshop for novelists. She's an art school dropout, an amateur flower gardener, an old-time banjo player, an obsessive moviegoer, and a champion of old dogs, which is, again, a mouthful. A lot of activities. And Louise has written her first book, The City Baker's Guide to Country Living. It's her debut novel, and we are going to have a nice chat about it today.
Thank you for having me.
And looks like such a fun book already. I was looking at the cover, so I wanted to ask you, when you were young, did you intend to one day grow up and put together this book?
No, this was never a dream. It's funny, when I was younger, I thought I would be an artist, a visual artist, and actually did go to art school for a couple years. But I've always been a reader. I've been just a crazy avid reader since I was really young. But for me, reading, like, books were this magical thing that it just never even occurred to me to try to make one for many years. But when I was in art school, I found myself, I was studying photography, and I found myself just more interested in the narrative, and I felt like I was trying to make narratives with my photographs, and I just always found myself trying to get a story in. And so when I left art school, I knew that was something that I wanted to pursue, but actually didn't pursue it for another 18 years.
So what were you doing in the meantime?
I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I was doing, and then I started baking, and I've been a pastry chef for, I think, 23 years now.
Wow.
So I've been doing that for a long time.
That's commitment to pastry chefing.
Yeah, and even then, I think the first 10 years, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and after 10 years, I realized I was going to be a pastry chef.
So it's a full-time thing, and there's no going back.
Yeah, I'm still at it.
Still at it.
Yeah.
And so what was your process for putting this book together? So you were saying that you look at photographs and you try to piece stories around photographs, or?
No, that was more, that was just when I was like making a lot of photographs.
Right.
Yeah. The process for this, it started, I tend to, with my writing projects, I start with kind of images I can't let go of, or questions I have. And so the first image of this book was something that I had carried around with me for about 10 years. And it was, I had entered a pie in the Topsfield Fair County, the apple pie contest.
Right.
And I dropped my pie off, and they said, come back at 7 and we'll announce the winners. And I came back at 7, and it ended up being a record year for pie entries.
Really?
And so they were running really late with the judging. So I walked in, it was the kitchens in like the arts and crafts building, and I walked in, and there were like 100 bakers all silently staring into this like glassed-in kitchen, just watching 3 judges eat. And it was dead silent, and the room was so tense. And,
I think there's a story right there.
Yeah, that's where it was born. So I just had no idea at the time how competitive it was.
Right.
And so it just started this kind of questioning process of, why is it so important? Like, what could the stakes be, with a pie contest?
Right.
And then the other thing that kind of came together was I was just spending a lot of time kind of fantasizing about leaving the city. I've always lived in the city. And so I just had a lot of questions about what I would gain and what I would have to give up. And so this was my way of kind of exploring what that would be like.
Right. And I'm sorry, did you win that contest?
I won second place. Yeah.
Just had to, yeah. Wow, awesome.
That was
That's
fun.
and you really won, because that was a tough, unusual
it was a
pie
good
entry
crowd.
year.
Yeah,
right?
I was told that like soggy bottom crust was a big issue that year.
Oh, I
so
see.
that got me in the door.
Wow. So I see that in this book you have quite a few photos. Do you take a lot of photos of farms and?
I do. It's funny. Yeah, there are a lot. I hadn't really thought about that before.
Yeah.
There are a lot of photographs referenced in the book. I do take a lot of pictures still.
Yeah.
I love
I always
technology
thought of you as
now.
a photographer somehow.
Thanks.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little obsessed with Instagram, and I just love technology now that everyone has a phone all the time. It's like so easy.
To document everything.
Yeah, and also like I just really remember having to buy the film and then getting
Right.
the film developed.
Yes.
And I kind of liked that anticipation,
Right.
but now I have it's just a free for all that I can
Right.
take as many pictures as I want, and I
Right.
don't have to worry about the money.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm a very visual writer. I really picture the scenes like
Right.
movies, and then kind of transcribe them from there. So I feel like my photography training really has played a big part in the writing process.
Oh, interesting. Wow, I'm still like thinking about all the stuff you just said. I was just thinking, I was at a chili cookout in Dallas, and that is serious business.
Yes.
I mean, that can last for like the entire day, and people are tense, and there's all kinds of things going on there. So that's a big deal. And do you enter a lot of competitions, or was your?
Yeah, no, it's frowned upon if you work in the business, but at the time I was working.
That's
like,
interesting.
It was very early in my career.
I did
so
not
I didn't
know
really
that.
know that at the time, and then I found out
Yeah.
later on, like, I shouldn't do that.
Right. I would think that they would encourage pastry chefs to join these kinds of like fairs and competitions.
I think it's really for home bakers, and it would just kind of tip the scales if people had a lot of experience.
Because it's unfair to have you professional pastry chefs in the mix.
Right.
Because then there would be no soggy bottom crust.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
I still feel guilty about it, but at the same time, I'm like, well, I didn't go to culinary school.
You were just starting out.
I was just starting.
Right. So tell us about this book. Can't wait to get into it.
So it's the story of a real kind of train wreck of a pastry chef who, in the first paragraph, like spectacularly creates an accident at her job and flees to her best friend's house, who lives in northern Vermont. Right. And she gets kind of coerced into taking a job in Vermont, and it's about her, really her search for belonging and for a sense of family, and it's a lot about small town politics and just kind of what it means to commit to a place and to people.
Right. And are there recipes in the book?
There's one critical recipe at the end
Good
that
to
plays
know.
a big part of the
Good
plot.
to know. Right. All right, good to know. That really that's funny when I first was looking through your work, and she's a photographer. Then I said no, she's a pastry chef, and so this must be a cookbook. And then I realized it's not a cookbook. It's a novel. So that's so interesting. So how much of your life or lives of your friends or people that you know have made it into this book?
It's funny. I think so much of the physical detail is from my life. You know, just little like observations. But none of the story is. All the story is very much fiction, and the characters are very much fiction. There's a chef in the book that is probably a composite of 3 chefs that I've worked with over the years, but there's no kind of like direct correlation. There's actually one character that is, I think he's mentioned twice in the whole book. That's a real person and a real name. Yeah, I don't think he knows.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, you're waiting for him to buy the book and then call you.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, we'll see. That's me.
Exciting. So you've had several readings and signings. So what are some of the places that you've already read at?
So my book launch was at Brookline Booksmith, and that was a lifelong dream of mine, because that's just been my bookstore for 25 years. I go in there and lurk and spend all my money. And so that was just amazing. And then I read at Harvard Bookstore, and that was also incredible and just a wonderful place. And then I got to go up to Vermont and read at a bookstore called Bartleby's in Wilmington. And that was wonderful and just like a fabulous kind of return to the book for me to be up in Vermont. So it was great.
Well, and what are some of your upcoming events? Where are you going to be at next?
My next event is in the Jamaica Plain neighborhood of Boston. It's called Paper Cuts. It's a little bookstore. I think it's the newest indie bookstore in Boston. I'm doing a reading sponsored by them, actually at a bakery called La Rosa. I'm going to forget. It means the Red Frog. But anyway, so that's on September 1st.
Okay. And that's coming up right around the corner.
Yeah, really fast. I actually was just looking at my calendar, and I have an event every week through October.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm excited about the fall. Yeah.
I know.
So I'll be at Boston Book Festival and the Concord Festival of Authors, both in October.
Yep.
And then I have going to be in Minneapolis and another trip to Vermont to visit a book group. And then some great reading series in Boston.
Right.
So,
wow.
yeah, I'm really excited.
All right. This is going to be your Massachusetts and East Coast road trip.
Yes, my little New England
season.
tour. I'm going to be in
Right.
Providence too.
Right, so I can't just say Massachusetts, yes.
Yeah,
And
a
if we
little
want to
bit.
know where you'll be so people can come see you, where should we go to find out your schedule?
So my website is actually on Tumblr. So
Okay.
it's louisemillerauthor.tumblr.com.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. And then tell us the name of your book one more time.
Oh, it's The City Baker's Guide to Country Living.
And where can we get a copy? Is it available?
It's at Wellesley Books.
Okay.
It's at, just any bookstore.
Yeah.
It's in Barnes &
Amazon.
Noble, Amazon definitely, online.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. Now we can all go over there and pick up a coffee and come out to see you read at the Red
I
Frog.
love it.
I like that name, the Red Frog. Sounds good. Did you get any interesting questions at your readings and book signings?
That's a fun question in itself.
Right. I'm sure that the Harvard students must have had something interesting to ask you.
It's funny. The first two readings really were mostly
Yeah.
people that I knew,
Mhm.
so it was fun to see
Yeah.
what they asked.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite questions we touched on a little bit was just the relationship between like visual art and writing. And it's funny. The whole week was such a blur. It's hard to remember.
Sure.
It was thrilling.
Does anything in particular stand out in your mind,
for the
like
week?
comments or questions, or just since you put the book out? I know it's come out fairly recently. It was in August.
It's just August 9th. So
Right.
it's only been a couple weeks.
Right.
The
What's stuck out in your mind so far about after the book launch and things that have happened?
Gosh, it's been incredible to get emails from strangers who are just excited about the book.
Right.
And especially, I love when people respond to the characters, or they'll say something specific about a character, because I just fangirl over books all the time. So to have someone do that with my characters, I'm like, oh my God, those are my characters.
Exciting, yeah.
So that to me is really the greatest.
Yeah. Do you see people making connections for your characters with each other and other things that you hadn't sort of thought of when you wrote the book?
Definitely.
Kind of like their own commentary of.
That's really interesting. I think that the whole process of writing and publishing is very funny because you're very alone, and it's very much you and your imagination and your characters. And I feel very close to my characters, and it's a fictional town, so I built the whole town, and and then as you go out, you start getting more and more feedback from critique groups and your agent and your editor. And so then by the time it's published, you realize you really have to let it go because it becomes other people's, and they bring their whole lives to their books the same way I bring my life into whatever I read. And so, it's really interesting. Even just the main character, like I actually don't read the Amazon and Goodreads reviews anymore. I did early on. And it's really fun just to see how people respond to her. Some people just love her and really relate to her, and some people just like she drives them nuts. And so just like people,
it's human.
Yeah,
it's a
very
human reaction.
human.
It's all over the spectrum of commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's been really fun. I thought it would be harder to let it go, and I actually am really kind of delighting in it having its own life, with readers. So.
Yeah, and so the story, the actual story, how long was it sitting in your head? Was it like years or?
Gosh, it was. I thought about writing really for a long time before I started, but the story in particular was starting to come together for me. I had an elderly dog who got bone cancer, and we had his leg removed because he just seemed really great, like himself, just happened to have cancer. And the vet said oh, he'll have 2 to 3 months. And so we're like, okay, we'll have 2 to 3 great months. So he ended up living for 14 months, which was incredible. But during those 14 months, we would take these very, very slow walks because he had 3 legs and he was almost 14. And so I spent all that time every day, just hours outside, just kind of daydreaming about this book. And so I promised myself, before I had started writing, I'd kind of had a lot of excuses of I don't have time, or I don't have, resources to take classes, and by taking care of my dog for that long, I realized that I could make the time to do anything. So I promised myself that when he passed, I would start writing. And so that is actually what I did. I took my first adult ed class a month after he died. But by then, I really had solidly the first 2 chapters just in my head.
Right.
So at the beginning, it was very easy.
And you knew what the town was going to look like.
Yeah, I could picture it perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny. And I knew the main character, and I knew what the problems were, but I didn't know why they were happening, which was kind of fun.
Yeah, and what was your dog's name?
Oh, his name is Carver. He was named after Raymond Carver.
Oh, very nice. I hope he's in the book. I'm going to look for him.
It's funny. There is a dog. There's an important dog in the book that doesn't look at all like Carver.
As long as there is an important dog in the book. That's all we ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
Sounds great. Well, great, Louise. Tell us anything else you want to add about you, the book, anything you can think of that you'd like to throw in there about the process, or
I don't know.
How does your family feel about you being this very famous published
Oh
author?
gosh, I know. I wish I were famous and published, which is enough.
Now that you're on the show, you're definitely famous.
They're thrilled. I think honestly, I never graduated from college, and I am in a long-term relationship, but we didn't have a formal wedding, and so this was my first big celebration of something of me, kind of something that I did.
Yeah, actually, this is your first ordinary thing, sort of, that you've done.
Yeah.
Although it's a big deal, it's still kind of the everything else for you has been so exciting.
This really did it marks time in a way for me. But I think that so that was just my family was thrilled, and it was just kind of wonderful to have this opportunity to just be with your friends and family and to celebrate something. It was really, that was a great.
I hope you had a very large party.
It was a blast. Yeah, I had a blast with the party.
It's good to know.
It was
every author deserves an excellent party when you just put that book out and say, okay, this is it. I'm stopping here and no more. And this is the last chapter.
And it's
Was that hard for you to end it, or did you want it to keep going on for a while?
I was ready to be done with it. It took me about 3 years to write the first draft, and so by then I just wanted to see the end.
Right.
And then, so it's 3 years first draft, but then during Novel Incubator I revised, I think, 4 times, and then I did another revision that summer before I approached agents. And so I don't know, you get to a certain place where you really feel done tinkering.
Yeah, you're like, that's it. This is how I want it to start and how I want it to finish.
Yeah, I think that it's done when you stop having questions yourself, and then there's a whole other layer of other people's questions.
Right.
But you do get to a place where it feels like, okay, I've done what I can, on my own. And,
right. And do you have ideas percolating in there for a second book?
I do. I actually had the great fortune of selling my second book along with the first.
Oh, very nice.
And so
is it going to be a sequel, or
it's not
separate?
A sequel? It's not a sequel, but it takes place in the same town.
Very nice.
So far, none of the same characters have shown up, but one of the same locations has.
Okay.
I really I quite purposely created a fictional town because I didn't want to have the pressure of getting a town right, you know?
Because then things don't make sense, and then people say, hey, wait a minute.
That's not there.
The post office isn't really there on that street.
Exactly. And then it's just like, oh, you're talking about the postmistress this
I
way.
How
you know?
Could you?
Yeah, exactly.
Not the postmistress.
And especially since I've actually never lived, I've spent a month at a time in Vermont, but I've never lived there full time. So, so it's really fun for me to create this fictional town, and it really became like a refuge for me. I just love. That was one of the things I set out to do when I was writing. One of the things I was interested in doing was creating a whole town. I'm a sucker for, I love Gilmore Girls. I just love those kind of ensemble stories where you really get to know a place.
Right.
So I couldn't resist setting the book, the second book in Guthrie, because it's.
And that's your town's name.
Yeah.
So now when people say, where are you going for vacation? You'll be like, oh, I'm going to Guthrie.
Yeah, in my mind.
You're trying to figure out, where is that? Where on the map? That's awesome. Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so excellent. So the City Baker's Guide to Country Living.
Yes.
And so that is available in Wellesley Books, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure everyone would love to pick up a copy and come see you read at the Red Frog.
Oh, I love it.
And all the times are listed on your Tumblr site.
Yes,
right?
There's an separate events page, and everything's there.
Sounds good. Looks like you may have a fan club following you up and down The highway.
So.
Yeah. Looks good. Congratulations.
Thank you
This
so
is
much.
Tremendous.
Oh, thank you.
And hope to see you again on the show.
I
You'll
would
have to
love
come
it.
back possibly when your second one comes out.
Oh, I'd be delighted.
Or sooner. And tell us
Anytime.
how it's going.
Anytime. I'd be
Awesome.
happy
Thank
to.
you, Louise.
Thank you
It's been a
so much.
pleasure.
Yes.